And we're live. Hello. Welcome everyone to the B-side with Ben Styles. Today we have a dear friend, Sam Sidorchuk.
Hi.
Man is a downhilling legend and a great human being. Got me into skateboarding many, many years ago. So let's just say, how have you been recently? How's things been?
Things have been really interesting recently. I don't know. I'm just working as I have been for the past couple years. That's not super changed, but recently I got sponsored downhill skateboarding. And I just today found out I'm entered into the longest running downhill race in all of history.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Pretty exciting. And where do you work?
I work at a shop called Espresso Tech. It's they sell and repair and service really, really expensive espresso machines for cafes and individuals. So kind of a weird job. I work in the back and I just repair coffee machines all day. Drink coffee.
Yeah, I get overly caffeinated.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's really interesting. I've developed absolutely no taste for coffee at all in the time working there. Like a lot of people who work there in the front are aficionados.
Yeah, I guess coffee snobbery.
Yeah, absolutely not. I have no tolerance for that.
I mean, fair enough. Coffee's coffee, right?
Yeah, it works.
But still, I think there's definitely some fancy beans out there. I do have a question for you.
Okay.
I do want to take it back to the early experiences of Sam Sidorchuk.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you were like as a kid. What were your dreams? Do you have any hopes you remember that didn't pan out, or how life changed for you?
Well, I would say that if we're talking about hopes and dreams as a kid, I have always really been fixated on speed, but specifically I always really wanted to be a test pilot.
Yeah?
I would have said that I wanted to be an astronaut, but given the option of being an astronaut or being a test pilot of exceptionally fast airplanes, I would have taken test pilot every time. And for some reason, I've been kind of fascinated with that for a long time. And I think at first it started as wanting to be an astronaut, but it's just been
going fast.
Going fast. Flying things was really it as a kid.
Definitely. Well, that's quite curious actually. I'm curious about your nature as well. Have you felt like your nature has stayed the same?
Oh, you're gonna have to describe nature to me in this sense.
Everyone has that kind of homeostasis where they're kind of always being. Some people are kind of angry. Some people are excited. Some people are really relaxed. Were you a very excited kid? Were you calm? Did you have lots of interests? In that kind of sense, your nature as a person.
Yeah. I was a very, very excited kid. I would say that I was a little bit hyperactive maybe, but I don't know how that term kind of has lost value or whatever. I think it's kind of just a kid thing.
Yeah.
I was
100%.
a very excited kid. I was really, really curious about everything. And I think that, I don't know, that's changed a little bit. I think that there's a little bit of cynicism now, a little bit in my nature, a little bit less kind of just naive curiosity. But yeah.
The world will definitely do that to you.
Yeah.
That's a strange place we live for sure. As far as stories go, I'm really curious what got you into skateboarding.
That one's really, really hard for me. So when I was really young, in the house that I grew up in, I lived there until I was 13, I think. Yeah, 13, probably 7th grade. And there was a bunch of kids that lived on that street that were all about the same age. The whole block that I lived on had probably 10 kids about the same age. And so our parents would throw block parties every year. And at the block parties, this is kind of the earliest I remember mucking around with skateboards and stuff, is at the block parties there was a little bit of a slope down the street, and everyone would get on those weird tricycles with plastic wheels or skateboards or anything and sit on them and just kind of go down the hill and go around the corner at the end of the street. And it was just kind of how kids tear around the suburbs on bikes or something. Well, we weren't going very far, but we were on skateboards and stuff. And I remember, because my dad had some 90s reissue Pal Peralta deck in the garage, that was some street skate pool board. I would go to the biggest hill in the neighborhood and try and sit on the skateboard and go down the biggest hill. And I remember going down this hill with a girl also on the skateboard, I don't know, it was just that was it. And
just sitting on your butt?
Yeah.
Oh, classic.
And then when I was in I think when I was like in the 8th grade or 9th grade, maybe I got like a little cruiser board with like soft wheels, and I would just kind of like cruise around on bike paths and stuff with some friends who also had the same sort of cruiser boards, and that was where it kind of started.
Yeah, okay. So I found, at least personally, a big part of it was like the media. Once you start getting into the videos of people flying down hills, you kind of get that idea in your head. Did you find that had a big influence on you?
It had a huge influence on me, and like I even today I was watching old skate videos like that I watched when I was, you know, like in like the 10th grade or something, when I was like 16, when I was really starting out downhill skateboarding. But there's a weird period that I have no memory of what the first like downhill skateboarding video I saw was, and I cannot figure it out. I don't know how I discovered downhill skateboarding. I had that cruiser board for a while. I went on a trip to Victoria with my parents, and it got stolen out of the back of our car. And my dad went to a skate shop in the neighborhood and traded some old reissue deck of his that I definitely wish he still had for a Sector 9 cruiser longboard. And that was my first longboard. And very shortly after, I had like gloves and was trying to do slides and go down hills, and I don't know how that started. I don't know what the first thing I saw was.
You don't know? Okay. And how old were you when this was taking place?
Well, I got the first like longboard and started to learn to do slides and go down hills right around the 10th grade, like 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. So I probably would have been 16.
That makes sense. Yeah.
16, 15.
I do have a little semantics question because I think people go at this a lot. But are you a longboarder or a downhill skateboarder?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, like, I think that a lot of longboarders are in denial about the fact that they're longboarders. A lot of downhill skateboarders want to say that they're longboarders. Or sorry, a lot of downhill skateboarders want to say that they're downhill skateboarders, but they're just all longboarders, and that's really what it is. Because, you know, like, even though that the fastest, most kind of racy downhill skateboarders now are like the same size as a street skateboard, they're like 30 inches long. They're not really long anymore. It's still longboarding, and I think that people try and say that it's not because the broader culture of skateboarding really like shits on longboarders.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
That's always a curious semantic one. So I guess for you, what would you say? Do you have a preferred term? Or
I kind of prefer downhill skateboarding because I like that it includes skateboarding. I think that it should be included under the umbrella of skateboarding. However, I'm kind of adamant that it's longboarding. That's what like most people know it as.
Definitely. I always had this conversation with people, and it's like, oh, you skate down hills, so you longboard. It's like,
well, I guess. If you want to call it that.
Yeah. It's the same thing, different names.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm really curious as to how the people in the community have helped you progress your skating.
Oh boy. It's been a weird time for me. So when I started downhill skateboarding, there wasn't really much of a open community for beginners in Vancouver, because Vancouver went through a big boom of downhill skateboarding in 2013, 2014, when the sport was just getting really big, and then it fell off around 2015. So in Vancouver, when I started around 2016, there really was not much of a open community. There were some like kind of grizzled veterans who were skating the big hills in North and West Van, but we were always like afraid of them. Like we didn't want to go there because that was their turf. It wasn't like there were people that were trying to teach us how to do things. So like I met one friend who was kind of my age, and we would just kind of skateboard whenever we could and look on Google Maps for like little hills in our neighborhoods that we could try and learn to skateboard on. And that was really it.
Was that Lazar?
That was Lazar.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, I don't know. I didn't really get a lot of help for quite a while. Like it was only once I was like a pretty capable downhill skateboarder that could kind of go down some of the bigger runs and slow down properly and do slides on my own, that then people in the community were sort of like, hey, come skate with us.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I guess they wanted to see that you had that bare level of confidence to just take you with them. But I find nowadays the community is a lot more inclusive. Like people are so stoked to see new riders, teach them, get them going.
Yeah, I think that people sort of recognize that after the big slump in downhill skateboarding, they needed to actually actively like bring people into the sport to have it kind of flourish, and to have people to skate with, you need to actually generate people to skate with, and you need to help beginners get to your level.
I guess for people that don't know skateboarding much, you can go pretty freaking fast. I'm curious, what's the top speed you've hit?
Well, yeah, I've probably done about 115 kilometers an hour downhill on my skateboard.
That's pretty fucking fast.
I can't say for sure, because generally, your top speed is recorded at official events. Your top speed is recorded with a radar gun or with a speed trap. So, 2 wires on the road, and you go past one and then you go past the other, and they can calculate your speed. But for me, all I've gotten is being followed by a car down a highway. And so, the car tries to approximately match your speed, and you can kind of just guesstimate from there.
Yeah, that's still pretty fast. And was this on the Big Iron Tour?
Yeah, this was on the Big Iron Tour.
Oh, I'm curious to go into Big Iron, because I think that has quite a few stories to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, what was do you have any favorite memories from that trip?
That one's really tough, because that was like my first skate trip that wasn't with my parents. So like when I went to a couple events when I was younger, I went with my parents. We would drive down to Washington to this road called Maryhill, and we'd stay in the hotel that's near the road. We wouldn't camp at the event, because the campsite gets pretty rowdy. And so I had never kind of been on a skate event unsupervised, and Big Iron wasn't really an event, but it was just like, the 6 of us, or I don't remember how many of us there were, just like tearing around the province. So I don't know, kind of all of the camping. I would say that one of my best memories was when we were driving towards Summerland, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, and we were in Emily's car, and there were 5 of us in her car, and there are like 4 seats plus a really narrow middle seat, and the roof box was full of skateboard gear, and the trunk was full of skateboard gear. So this car was like slammed to the ground, and we were barely fitting, and we were driving to Summerland. It was like 10 o'clock at night. We were realizing that we weren't going to get to our camping spot till about midnight, and we finally reached the point where our friend Noah, who was driving down from Prince George to meet us, was going to be coming up the opposite direction of highway as us. So we were going to run into each other in the middle, see him pull over to the side of the highway, and that's what we did. And it was just really beautiful, because we had not seen Noah in probably 5 months, because he lived in Vancouver, and then he moved up to Prince George to spend more time with his parents, and because COVID was not that great for him.
Miss you, Noah.
Miss you, Noah. But yeah, so that was really just phenomenal. Noah had his entire life in the back of his Jeep, because he was moving back down to Vancouver. So he had like all of his possessions in the back of his Jeep, and we had this car full of people that were overpacked and really excited. And I just have this memory. It's partially a memory, partially a shot I took, but of the 2 cars, both with blinkers on, sitting on the side of the highway next to each other, and everyone just like hugging, and it was dusky and just out in the middle of nowhere, and there was barbed wire, and I don't know, it was really like cowboy-esque almost. It was really fitting for the start of the Big Iron Tour.
Yeah, that sounds like a beautiful moment.
That's maybe like a wholesome favorite memory.
Yeah, there's definitely
there's some debauchery.
A lot of debauchery that went down, but we won't go too deep into the debauchery.
Yeah.
I'm quite curious what skating down Revelstoke does to your legs.
Oh boy. Well, so I mean, I don't know, should I introduce Revelstoke for those who don't know?
Yeah, please do.
So Revelstoke is this city, this like really skier, snow sport city, kind of ski bum vibe in the middle of BC, kind of northern, really close to Alberta. And they have a big, beautiful ski hill, and they have another mountain on the other. So Revelstoke's just like in a valley. It's surrounded by mountains, and one of the mountains is it's a provincial park, and it's called Meadows in the Sky, and it's a long road that just goes up to the top of this mountain, and at about I think 5 p.m. they close the road to uphill traffic because it doesn't go anywhere at the top. You know, it's just a viewing point. And so it's a bit of like it's a little bit of a mecca for downhill skateboarding in BC, although it's kind of a hidden gem. Because it takes you like 25 minutes to skate to the bottom going like 100 kilometers an hour. It's a big hill. So we, as part of our trip, made it to Revelstoke to skate this road. None of us had ever done it. We had just kind of heard whispers about how amazing it was. It really does numbers on your legs. It's a bit of a leg burner.
I would imagine.
You know, I mean, we had been skating the whole summer up to this, so we were all pretty built in the legs. But it was tiring. We stopped, you know, in the middle of the road, well, halfway down the road at a lookout to smoke a CBD joint and kind of hopefully relax our muscles for the rest of the road down, because it's really a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And for people who don't know, when you're standing on a skateboard, especially when you're trying to go fast, you're in a aerodynamic position, so you got your knee to your chest, and you're kind of folded over, so it can get very taxing. Especially for 25 minutes.
And I mean, you know, you want to keep your weight on only one of your legs to go well, because putting your weight on your back foot causes you to wobble and start countersteering from the back, and that's how people get unstable and fall. So you want to keep all your weight on one leg up at the front of the skateboard, and it's tiring.
Definitely. That sounds like an amazing experience, though, to go down that mountain.
Yeah, it was something. It was like it was a closed road, because there really was no traffic, and it was just like beautiful scenery. They call it Meadows in the Sky for a reason.
Yeah. Sounds like an amazing trip. Still on the subject of skateboarding, I'm very curious how the process of you getting sponsored happened.
Really out of nowhere. I gotta be honest. I really out of nowhere. Like I replied to the company that I'm sponsored by, Rolling Tree. I replied to their owner / founder's Instagram story of one of their new decks that they're prototyping, and I just said it looks really good. And he said, I asked what the specs are, and he told me, you know, the length and the width, because that's kind of, you want to know that to know if you're going to like a skateboard. And then he just said the name of a previous team rider who had recently left the company. This person keeps telling me to get you on the team. Let's make that happen. Like it was just out of nowhere proposition. I haven't ever, until this date, I hadn't even seen one of their boards in real life, because they don't really make it up to Canada.
Whoa. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it happened really fast.
Do you think that speaking to them had anything to do with it?
No, because Has wants me on his team.
Damn. I guess tough life having to choose, or not having to choose, but
well, I mean, Harry, the world champion of downhill skateboarding, currently rides for a different company, and you know, I was talking to him about a week after I got sponsored, and he said he knew who I was sponsored by before I told him, and I was really surprised because I hadn't announced it anywhere. And he was like, yeah, I wanted to get you on my team, just slightly too late. So don't tell Rolling Tree, but we're gonna talk again in about a year, maybe see where things are at with his team.
Definitely. That would be a pretty amazing move in the future. Yeah, definitely. That man can go fast. I'm really curious, a bit more of a technical gear question.
Yeah.
How do you think the Rojas have affected your skating? Like,
honestly, it's really hard to say. They're really unique, and I think that it's a certain level of like confidence in my gear, almost more than the actual abilities of the trucks. The way that they're designed is such that like a certain amount of like slop or play that exists in normal downhill skateboarding truck geometries is just not possible in Rojas. And you really want, you know, the utmost precision when you're downhill skateboarding, because you're just a person on a skateboard going that fast, and you want your steering to be exactly what you tell it to be. So I think it's just confidence in that. They've kind of inspired confidence in my skating a little bit. I don't know. I have to be a little bit more careful over rough pavement and cracks and stuff, because they are fully rigid. It's like you could skate them without bushings in them. They are just a completely solid object from your deck to your wheels. So there's no suspension.
Seen you do that.
It's it's something.
Yeah, no, definitely. And on the subject of gear as well, I'm very curious as to how you would compare them to your other experienced skating precisions, because I know you've tried a lot of trucks out there.
I've tried a lot of trucks.
Do you have like a tier list in your brain of what you really like?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of discipline of downhill we're talking about, because, you know, like I've skated a lot of eras. I've skated Skoas, I've skated Ronins, I've skated precision Rogues, but not the newer slalom geometry. I've skated other stuff, but I can't even, there's too many. But I would say that Rojas are probably my favorite all around kind of narrow little truck. I really liked Ronins for the same things, but they definitely have issues in that I really wasn't aware of when I was skating them. They have issues in the way that Rojas don't, where when you're going through a turn and putting a lot of load into your skateboard and you know, there's G-forces from just how hard you're trying to grip the road through a corner. Your weight into the skateboard compresses the bushings on the side of the deck and actually changes your turning angle while you're turning, and it just kind of leads to a little bit of inconsistency in cornering that I think a lot of people don't notice when they're skateboarding. Or they aren't even aware of this possibility. And I mean, there's really only one truck that completely solves it, which is Rojas.
Yeah.
There's some other ways of skating that you can put like a spherical bearing in some other trucks, but it really isn't quite the same.
I see. Okay. That's really interesting, actually. And as far as skateboarding goes, I'm really curious what about the sport of downhill has kind of captured you, because there's so many aspects to it. There's the social aspect, there's the speed, the control, there's a lot involved, even the risk. But
yeah.
What do you think is the most captivating thing to you?
I don't know. I've wondered about this question for a while. I don't have a really good answer, and I wrote my capstone essay in grade 12 English on what I thought it was at the time, and I don't think it's that now. I used to think that it was kind of like the meditative aspect, because when you're going that fast and you're just a person on a skateboard, you can't really afford to be thinking about anything else. You have to be really focused on the present, and you just kind of head empty, go downhill, turn around the corner, but I don't think that that's what it is, because a lot of the skateboarding I do now, with how long I've spent in Vancouver, doesn't require that much focus anymore, because I'm so used to the skating here. Yet I still love it, and I still do it all the time, and I don't feel any less of a draw to it. I think that part of it is like that childish wanting to go really fast. Skateboarding feels really fast because, you're not in the shell of a car or anything. 100 kilometers an hour on a skateboard feels really fast compared to being in a car.
Yeah, definitely.
I also think that I would probably pursue any other racing sport that I could afford. If I could afford to race cars, I would probably race cars.
That's fair. Do you think that that's something you'll probably transition out of, from skateboarding to cars at someday in the future?
I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford to actually race cars. I don't like as a hobby, it's very expensive, and I think it's a little bit too late in my life to get into it in a way that I would be getting paid for. I think that a lot of people who race cars either start with family in car racing or auto racing, or they start very young and they start with go-karts and they work their way up. And there's formula for go-karts. So that's kind of just like how racing drivers get scouted, is like in formula go-kart racing.
Really? I honestly had no idea.
Yeah. So it's quite a process, and I just don't think at this point in my life I'm able to make it to that level.
Yeah, and I guess doing it recreationally is a huge hit on the wallet. So.
Oh, massive. I mean, yeah. And I mean, I'm still pretty interested in cars and going fast in cars, but I don't think I'll ever take it to some level where I'm racing on a track, really.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I like how you said that skateboarding had a meditative aspect to it. I think that's definitely something that's true, at least in some regard. And I'm curious as to how that ties into mental health. So I know being able to get out and skate or do other activities can be really beneficial, and especially here in Vancouver in the winter months, it's harder to do that.
Yeah, I definitely notice like a change in my mental health a little bit going into the winter. Although, I mean, we kind of just skate all year round and get used to skating in the winter, but it's not quite the same. And honestly, it's really stressful to skate in the rain and in the wet. You have no grip on the road. It's really hard to corner. It's a lot more dangerous.
It's a different beast for sure.
Totally. So, I mean, you don't quite get the same amount of skating or the same thing out of it in the winter. And I notice it. I try and do, I don't know, I really want to take up snow sports.
Snow sports are a lot of fun.
Just to have something like that to do in the winter. Because I definitely get a little bit frantic and kind of, it's hard to describe. I get into buying clothes that I can't afford in the winter. And that's just like such a senseless purchase, but
sometimes that's how it goes. I definitely feel that. It's a weird thing trying to balance out activity and mental health, but I found it's strangely so necessary for humans to function, to be able to move and do things we enjoy. Definitely. On that subject, I'm very curious as to what you've learned in your past relationships about validation.
Oh my God, that's a big change.
That is a big change.
About validation. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Definitely. I know that you've mentioned that a need for validation has caused trouble for you, and that it's something you've learned to be more aware of. And I guess I just wanted you to elaborate on that, because it is a very difficult thing, trying to balance out the needs of others and your own needs, as well as being self-aware about it and making smart choices.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've just, I think I've felt a bit of like anxiety and jealousy and stuff, and that for me turns into like a need for validation of like that I am loved or that I am like wanted in a relationship. And that's kind of been hard for me to manage, and it's something that I've had to both kind of really be conscious of what I'm doing and the way I'm acting, and when I'm kind of out of line and being, too needy or unreasonably jealous over, things that I shouldn't be insecure about. With also, talking to my partner and kind of, I don't know, working on kind of both sides. So, sometimes if, your insecurity isn't always like invalid or like, just cause you're insecure, it's, I've had situations where I've like talked about things and with my partner realized that maybe they weren't giving enough or.
Yeah, it's never a black and white story. And definitely clear communication is a huge part of it.
Yeah,
definitely. Very different turn, but I'm quite curious as to why we were eating so many moths.
Oh my God, on Big Iron.
Little Iron. Or on Big Iron too.
No, yeah, that was on Big Iron. I mean, I think it happened all around. So for those of you who aren't totally aware, when we did our trip, we did, first we did Small Iron, which was kind of a precursor, and we went to Bowen Island, which is, just off the coast of Vancouver mainland, and camped over there. And then we went on our proper trip around the province. And during that period, there was a big moth population boom in BC. There were just a lot of moths everywhere. And basically, there's a very old joke that stems from a downhill racer named Kyle Martin, whose nickname in racing was Meth Hammer. And his nickname was Meth Hammer, I think, because he had a very good push. Like, he was kicking off of the start line to, get yourself moving. He had a really powerful push, and they called it, like a hammer. Maybe he was on steroids, Meth Hammer, just hammering the ground. And I don't know how this kind of arose, but there was like just a funny bro-y culture in downhill skateboarding and all these weird inside jokes. And there was a team called Moth Hammer, and all you had to do to get on Moth Hammer was send this racer this Kyle Martin meth hammer guy a video of you eating a moth. And this is like totally before my time. Like this moth hammer shit was probably like 2014, 2015. But my friends and I, we heard about it somehow, and just thought it was really funny. And during this moth boom, we took a video of one of us eating a moth and sent it to him. And eventually he got back to us and said, you know, blah, 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 you're on Moth Hammer, you're ridiculous, haven't thought about this in forever. But in the meantime, we just thought it was really funny because there were so many moths, and it just kind of became a joke that they were like a snack, you know, because insect-based protein or whatever. And they were just all over, and so along with the spiders, we were eating the moths.
Were you eating spiders as well?
No, the spiders were also eating the moths.
Okay, good.
No, we weren't eating any spiders. I don't think any of us have done that yet.
All right. I mean, that'll be the next hammer gang. Spider hammer. No.
I don't think I could eat a spider.
No, it's pretty horrendous.
Oh.
But I don't know. We ate a lot of moths.
Yeah.
Lazar ate a lot of moths.
Lazar ate a lot of moths. On Big Iron, I ate a lot of moths. So specifically in Revelstoke, we camped right next to a bridge. Revelstoke is sort of divided by this river. Most of it is on, I think it would be the north side of the river. Our campground was on the south side of the river, but right next to the bridge. And it's this just kind of truss iron bridge that has a road in the middle that's one lane, and it switches back and forth. And then it has a walkway on the side, and the walkway on the side has, you know, fences on the side so you don't fall into the river. And the fences are this kind of iron grid, this kind of cross-hatching weave pattern, and every single square in the grid had a spider's web in it that was full of moths.
Wow.
Because the bridge was lit up at night, and I think that the current of the river would bring moths down the river, and just they would all just fly through this grid, try and get to the lights on the bridge, and it was just a big net. And so there were also just tons of moths flying around this area, and we naturally, wandering around at night outside of our campground because it was right there, ended up on this bridge and just found so many moths and ate so many moths for the bit because we were a little bit inebriated and
moths,
and it was funny.
I mean, I will admit it was quite funny. Yeah, that was definitely a lot of fun. I'm curious about the Bowen Island stories. We have had some adventures on Bowen for sure, and I always find that there's a specific Bowen vibe. What would you say the Bowen vibe is, just in general?
In general, well, I think Bowen's really unique. It's really, really, really unique because it's just absolutely no fear of getting like arrested for disorderly conduct or downhill skateboarding, which is persecuted in a lot of places. You know, cops just don't like to see you skateboarding really fast down the street, especially when you're doing it on highways, or in our case in West Vancouver, it's actually against the law to downhill skateboard, and that's where we downhill skateboard every weekend. So Bowen's, you know, tiny. There's maybe one police officer on Bowen, and it's an island, and everyone's very nice, and we'll let you hitchhike everywhere. And we always just go to this development that doesn't really have any houses on it yet. I think there's one or two now. And camp there and, you know, drink and spend all day going back and forth from the beach to the road and just kind of walking up the road and skating down and walking up and skating down. Bowen vibe.
That sounds like the Bowen vibe. Could you tell us about the spaceman that lives on the hill? What is our experience with this lovely lad?
Well, so this road is like a really curvy little stretch of road. You could, you know, if you're at the top, you can basically see to the bottom, except for the fact that it's quite steep. Takes you maybe like 10 minutes to walk up, maybe less.
Yeah, and 30 seconds to get down.
30 seconds to get down, something like that. There's one house directly on the road, and they had been building it for the whole period of time where we've been going to Bowen, and now someone inhabits it. And it's this like incredible, low, really open house. You know, you can see through from the front door all the way out to the back windows that the kitchen looks out from over Vancouver, because you can see Vancouver from where this house is. across the water. Really, I think probably a very wealthy gentleman living there. And we met this man one time, and I would say that Noah would probably be able to describe him with a little bit more eloquence, but that's just because Noah's got that unique way of describing things. But he just seemed like a really strange cowboy that like was not of this earth, like probably so wealthy that he just kind of can develop this like absolutely like complete ease about him, like he was out in this beautiful like silk kind of robe with, I swear to God we saw him with a cowboy hat one time, and that's where this came from. He's kind of got like a little bit of a southern drawl, but not really southern, because it would be like a little bit northern Canadian. He talked about a ranch that he has in the interior, and this is just kind of his part-time home, and this part-time home is probably worth several $1 million. Yeah. Just kind of like an ethereal being. I don't know how to describe him very well, honestly. He's really unique. And also enough. It's been a little while since we've seen him.
It's been a minute for sure, but I don't know. I just remember the time he called us over to help him move stones and gave us money for beer.
Yeah, that was really interesting. A lot of people are not nearly that both like undaunted by a group of kind of like 20-year-olds drinking and skateboarding down the street. But he was not only like undaunted, but extremely welcoming. He had us like fill up our like big water jug to fill up our water bottles at his tap on the side of his house, and he had us move around pavers and paid for our beer, and just was extremely kind. Vouched for us when some other people came over and asked about who was camping on the property. Just a really unique person with an energy that I haven't really met other people that have.
No, definitely. And that's kind of what I was getting at with the whole Bowen vibe thing. I find that everyone on that island is just very kind and welcoming. Yeah,
totally. Like, for reference, the West Vancouver that I talked about a little bit earlier, where we downhill skateboard all the time, is like extremely wealthy. Every single house there is, from $2 to $40 million.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
It's like the neighborhoods that we skate with are mansions.
And of all the places, why is the one spot you choose to skate illegal?
Well, because in the past, when there was a big skateboarding boom, everyone flocked to West Van to skate because the roads are the best, because it's a really wealthy neighborhood built on the side of a mountain. So it's just these curvy, windy streets that have nice maintained pavement and banking corners, so you could take your expensive car around the corner. And honestly, we've seen like rallies of Lamborghinis going through the British properties while we've been out there skating. It's really something. So it just works very well for downhill skateboarding. A grid layout neighborhood that's 90-degree corners is not fun to downhill skateboard in, but these windy roads are. However, during the skateboarding boom, I think a lot of people went there who were not quite able to actually skate the roads safely. And some people got hurt, and it caused a lot of problems. And, the really wealthy residents didn't like the noise and the kind of fright of seeing skateboarders come around a corner when they're trying to drive up to their house. And I understand why it's illegal.
It does make sense. But, if you get caught, it's just the entry fee. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I think that with the way that the scene here has changed, and skateboarders are quite a bit more responsible and respectful in West Van, like we don't really get persecuted by police there anymore. We see police sometimes, and they either just wave and drive off, or they tell us, you're not really supposed to be skateboarding on some of these roads. The whole municipality is illegal. And they say like, be safe, stop at stop signs, and they're really kind. So I think that the atmosphere of the scene changing here to be a little bit more respectful and careful and open to new people and open to being more respectful has kind of changed the attitude of law enforcement in West Van. And
I think that's great, actually.
Yeah.
I kind of wasn't expecting that. I figured it would still be really stuck up.
No. Like you used to have kids like running through people's properties and bushes and stuff to run away from the police because they would get chased down hills by police cars. And it's absolutely nothing like that anymore. Occasionally we get complaints, or we get like someone who is, not super excited about it, but we try to talk to them. we try to have conversations with these people now instead of just whizzing away or you know, giving them the finger and doing it all over again.
Fair enough. And it's a better image to portray out to people, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Some respect in the downhill community,
Yeah.
because I feel like we can be a pretty rowdy bunch.
Yeah, no doubt.
To say the least.
No doubt.
As far as rowdiness goes, I'm curious to talk about parkade skating.
Yeah.
Because that's always a super
Absolutely.
rowdy gang. What time did you start skating parkades? Like, at what point in your life did that become a thing?
Well, I started skating parkades probably, I want to say like within the first 6 months of starting longboarding. So like I got my first longboard in spring of 2016, like probably like February. And I think I started going to parkades that summer. Very quickly after I got my first longboard, I somehow ended up at Flat Spot, the downhill skateboarding shop in Vancouver, the only downhill skateboarding shop in Vancouver. They are the best, and they kind of put me in the right direction. And there's a weekly session here called Parkades. It's every Thursday night at 8:30. Meet up at the Art Gallery, where you go skateboard around downtown Vancouver, and you go into parking garages and take the elevator up or take the stairs up and skateboard down. And you do it over and over again at one parkade, and then you go to the next one and the next one and the next one, and you just do that for a night until like 10:30, midnight, something like that.
Yeah, go pretty late, have some fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely a very rowdy scene.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what your favorite parkade is.
Well, because of the downhill skateboarder in me, because of the I want to go fast around corners, I think a lot of the garages are a little bit tedious because a lot of them are pretty mellow slopes that just loop back on themselves, and it's really, you could go down it backwards if you really tried really hard and you really thought about it. They're not very challenging, but I really like Dirty Chicane, which is actually not a garage. It's a section of road. It's like the only proper downhill skateboarding run in parkades, I would say, except for maybe the Shangri-La Hotel has a really amazing parking garage that has like a really, really fast couple corners, like fast enough that some people who are going to garages definitely shouldn't skate Shangri-La. We don't skate it very often.
Yeah, it's a rare one.
But Dirty Chicane is really cool because you come down a street and you have to leave. Basically, you start at the top and you have to watch the light at the intersection at the bottom, and you wait until it starts counting down to change in your direction. So until it starts counting down for the pedestrians in the opposite direction. So you're going to get a green. And then you rage down the hill and you take a left corner, not actually onto the road, but there's a ramp that goes down into kind of an underground loading area, not for a building, but like for some like a group of complexes. It used to be a train loading area for like the CN station that used to be there. And you actually have to do some slides. Most of the garages, you don't have to do any slides. And it's just really fun and weird to like go down from street level into a tunnel, and you pass like cars that are sitting waiting for the light to change, and everyone's like looking at you weird, like what the fuck are these people doing?
Yeah, it's a pretty a pretty special one for sure. I quite like the Dirty Chicane personally.
Yeah. What's your favorite parkade?
Me, honestly, probably Dirty Chicane.
Yeah.
I really like it, but if I had to pick another one, maybe Higher Education.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and
fantastic.
Skull Skates is great.
Skull Skates is really good. Haven't done Skull Skates in a while.
Skull Skates is so fun. It's the only like tighter spiral one that I feel comfortable going down.
Yeah.
But
Skull Skates has been skated since literally the 80s.
That's actually so cool.
Yeah, like it's called Skull Skates. Skull Skates is a skateboard shop in Vancouver that has been around, I think, since the 70s or the 80s, and they, originally started with like transition skateboards, and they made some longboards for a while, and I think there's like an old, I don't know if it's in Thrasher or it's in a different skate mag, but there's an old cover from like the 80s or 90s of street skaters going down that parkade, and they called it Skull Skates because that was, the shop and the people who skated in Vancouver at the time. And there are still people skating it now, and like the elevator barely works, and the road kind of looks like it's falling apart, but it's a lot of fun.
It's a little falling apart.
I definitely don't think you could get away legally with like designing a parkade that has corners with that grade anymore.
It's pretty intense.
Especially because there's like there's little drops when you're coming around the left corner. They're all left-hand corners, and when you're coming around the inside, if you take it all the way on the inside, they actually did not pave the whole curve. It just drops. Really fun on a skateboard, not fun in a car, probably.
I would imagine. I'm actually quite curious if you know the name of the parkade that's on the very top right of the Canby Bomb.
Oh,
the one that if you cut in right, it also has that same drop where you can kind of go over the inside line and hit a drop.
Top right of the Canby Bomb. Do you mean the Canby Bomb before you take the left corner, or like?
It's like the left corner. There's a parkade.
Yeah, I know the parkade you're talking about. I've maybe skated it like once, maybe twice, not many times.
Right? I really like that one.
I don't know what it's called either.
Damn. All right. Well, I guess that's gonna have to be someone else figures that out.
Yeah. Katie made a list of all the parkades recently, every single one.
Katie probably knows.
Katie definitely knows. There are parkades in there that I've never heard of. There's parkades kind of like across the bridge on like Main Street, on the other side of the inlet.
Really?
Yeah.
I have
really
no
really
idea.
crazy.
Whoa, we gotta check those out someday. One day. But damn, yeah. I'm trying to think of other fun parkade stories. I've had endless hectic nights. Do you have any highlights, like when you think of a parkades night that was particularly crazy? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking about this like yesterday. Right now there's a lot of downhill skateboarding documentaries coming out for some reason. Not really documentaries, but like there's like 3 prominent figures in the downhill skateboarding scene, like internationally, have just released trailers for what seem to be like full length, I'm assuming like 45 minutes to like an hour and a half videos that are not just like runs of skateboarding, but that are actually like about, you know, why that person skateboards or whatever. And we were talking about this because there's another one that's been filming for a long time called Super Kooks. And this one was kind of the original, in recent memory, downhill skateboarding, almost documentary. They travel around to like a bunch of downhill skateboarding events and filmed and interviewed people, and they've been filming, I think, since 2019. And I think COVID really delayed it, but like they went on the race circuit around Europe. They went to Giant's Head. So that's how this comes up, is basically there's an event in the interior called Giant's Head that happens every year. That's a really popular downhill skateboarding event. Like people come from all around the world. And what they do is they come into Vancouver the week before and they skate the runs in Vancouver before going up to Giant's Head for the weekend, for the event. And so on Thursday night before Giant's Head, it's parkades, and it's a really huge crew because there's all these people who are out of town coming to parkades, and it gets really rowdy. So in 2019, when this happened, the parkades night fell on, it was like the day or the day after I graduated high school. So that parkades night was really crazy. There was so many people from all over the world, like not from Vancouver, so many faces that like I had seen in videos or seen on Instagram that I had never actually, you know, met. Super Kooks was filming at parkades. They interviewed some people. They interviewed our friend Finn. They interviewed Sean.
Yeah?
Sean was left with the filmers for Super Kooks for like a half hour.
Whoa, I hope they got some deep stuff out of Sean.
Oh yeah. And so that night, you know, I was drinking a lot because it was my graduation. I was just having a party. You know, we were being hooligans in front of the camera, and just for all these people who were new, and just doing, you know, the craziest skating we could, because why not?
Special night.
And that was a really crazy parkades memory.
That was the gradcades, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was when you graduated too.
Yeah, we graduated the same year, so.
I have some other ones of like, I you know, they're not fully fleshed out memories, but they're memories of like nights where we were running from security for like a long time, like through multiple parkades, because the security, you know, hired to do parkades is the same company for like a couple
It's all Paladin, isn't it? Freaking Paladin security.
I think it's all Paladin. Although I think it might be, I think there's one other. Isn't it like Black Diamond or something?
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that was really that was a really crazy night. We definitely like set off a fire alarm in one parkade and then ran to another one, and then they were there waiting for us, and we had to run from them from there. And then I don't know, every single night that we go into I don't remember what the parkade's called, the hotel where you have to actually send someone into the lobby.
I know the one you're talking about, but I also forgot the name. I love that parkade. It's so fun.
Yeah, so there's this parkade where
Aren't you supposed to walk in backwards?
into the lobby?
No. Once you go through the lobby, we go through the doors and walk in backwards to make it look like we're leaving.
I've never heard that, but honestly, that checks out. There's all these like weird zany parkades where you have to like. There's this one called Lockdown where you have to actually like climb up a power pole in the alley that's next to the outside of the parkade, and like jump into the first level of the parkade that's on like, you know, it's like the second story of a building.
You've always been the one to climb it, haven't you?
Yeah, I have always been the one to climb it, but I think someone else would be doing it if I wasn't volunteering every time. It's just been like when I was like, you know, 16 or something, I was like the youngest person there, and they were like, climb this, and I was like, okay. And then I've just been doing it since because it's fun and it's funny, and I don't know, I don't want to put that burden on someone else.
That's fair. And you've always got away with it unscathed, so.
Yeah. That one's pretty weird, but yeah, there's one where it's the parkade under a hotel, and everyone who's trying to get into the parkade to skate goes and waits at a door kind of on the side of the hotel. And one person, you know, leaves their skateboard, their gloves, their helmet with that group of people at the door on the side, and then walks around the building to the lobby and just walks into the lobby as if they're a guest of the hotel, goes to the elevator and goes down a floor because the door on the other side is on a lower floor. And this floor is like mostly conference rooms and like, you know, like dining halls and stuff. So it's really empty at that time of night because, you know, we usually only get there at like 10:30 on a Thursday.
Yeah, it's one of the later ones.
So it's really empty, and you just walk into that level, go over to where the door is, open it from the inside because it's an exit, and, you know, it's unlocked from the inside. And everyone comes in, and you go skate the parkade that's like a floor lower than that until security comes and kicks you out or you get bored. But that one's really fun, and I've had some fun nights where like it wasn't a big crew. It was just like, you know, us and a couple of our friends, and we'd just like go in and kind of mess around in that weird hotel area.
Definitely. I remember skating. I still have a spoon from that hotel that we got in the lobby.
Oh, yeah.
That was quite a bit of fun. I'm really curious as to the night that I bought a Craigslist sign off you for $0, the no skateboarding, no drinking sign. No skateboarding, no rollerblading, no biking. Do you remember that?
Is the Craigslist part like an excuse that we came up with? Yeah. Because that was from like the seawall path, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that was good. That was really interesting.
That was a very hectic night. Could you recall the events?
I don't know. I was drinking, of course, as you do at parkades. But we kind of end the night at parkades at this path right on the seawall because it's not a parkade. So you're not going to get kicked out, and you can just kind of skate this stinky little path or sit on the benches and hang out and talk because everyone's tired at this point. And there's some signs at the pavilion at the top that are like, no skateboarding, rollerblading, blah, blah, blah. And Ben decided that he wanted one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe this is more or less what went down.
Yeah. And so we, unfortunately for municipal government, at least here, they have chosen to bolt signs to things with the same size bolt or the same size nut that our skate tools use for, you know, our skateboards. It's the same size nut that our skateboards use for their kingpin. So all of our skate tools have the proper socket to undo these signs and take them off walls and stuff. And so naturally, you know, we took this no skateboarding sign off of some concrete pillar that was holding up, you know, something. I don't know. We took the no skateboarding sign, and
I'm pretty sure it was the pillar that was holding up the shelter for the rain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would do it. We took this sign, and we, eventually we had to take the train home because, we have to take the train home from where Parkades ends. It's, like a few stops on the SkyTrain. And we went, and it was probably like one of the last trains. Wasn't it like one of the last trains?
It was, I think, very close to being one of the last trains. So I do remember the night we got the last train and didn't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was a different night.
I mean, weekdays the trains don't run so late, so like you're leading on the last train at like 12:30, I think.
Yeah.
And we took the train back to our local station and realized that we had to think up some excuse for like why Ben was holding this municipal sign that was clearly stolen, in case there were transit police or actual police waiting in the station. And lo and behold, there were transit police waiting in the station. And this station has two exits, one on the south side and one on the north side. And we originally went to kind of go towards the south side one, and there were police there, and Ben had realized that he had lost his fare, right? This was the same night?
Yes, but I think you're missing a part of the story.
Okay, fill me in.
Okay, so the first encounter we had with the transit police was at Waterfront Station, the first station we got in.
Oh my goodness.
Do you remember?
No,
this?
I don't.
So you had swerved in front of a scooter, and the scooter pulled
Oh my god.
an impromptu stop,
Yeah.
which then alerted the police officer that shenanigans were going on in our direction.
Yeah.
And instead of looking at you, the person who had swerved in front of the scooter, he noticed me holding this big stolen sign.
Yeah.
So
and this wasn't in a bag, like you
I
were
was
just
holding
the
it.
sign. Yeah.
I was just holding it. So I was under the influence of some cannabis.
Yeah.
And the officer asked me, "Hey, where'd you get the sign?" So I didn't really have anything to say because it was very clearly stolen.
Yeah.
And my friend Noah, who we shouted out earlier, love you Noah, comes up and saves my ass and just tells the police officer, we got it at a construction site. The people there weren't using it anymore, and they gave it to us. The police officer just did not care. So
really?
Yeah, he was like,
I don't think I knew that Noah made that excuse.
He did. He saved my life.
Wow.
Well, not saved my life, but
probably would have been a pretty tough night.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want to go home in a police car. So the reason I didn't have my fare is because I got tapped in by this Russian drug dealer dude who then tried to sell us drugs when we got onto the SkyTrain with him.
Was that guy who like gave us his Instagram?
Yeah.
I followed him up until very recently. Yeah, really strange. So you got tapped into the train and then didn't have a fare.
Exactly.
And we sat on the train for a while and got caught up in conversation with this weird guy who lived at he was like staying at some hostel in downtown and, working at a restaurant under the hostel. I think like for his stay, for room and board. And so we got caught up and just kind of forgot about the fare thing. And we got to the station where we were going to get off and went to leave. And there were police waiting at the exit that we were originally going to go out, right?
Yeah.
So we turned around, went towards the other exit. And, I recall it being very tense.
There were more police.
Yeah, weren't they walking sort of towards us because they were closing the station and they were just trying to like get people out?
I believe they were escorting someone who was causing trouble out, which means they weren't really paying attention to us.
Yeah.
But I was still holding a large stolen sign.
Large stolen sign, and then I tapped you out, and we skateboarded away as fast as we could.
Yeah, and it was fine. She made it home. Still have the sign.
That was a really fragmented memory for me. I'm sorry. I don't think I had put it together that was all the same night.
I was curious to see how fragmented it was.
Yeah,
hence the question. I'm curious if you have any other like really cursed Parkades night. I've known there to be some like horrendous experiences. I have two in particular in my mind, but I'm curious as to what your experiences have been like.
I don't think I have too many that I would call like horrendous or even very bad. There's been some like weird situations. I mean, like there's a lot of nights where it happens very often that you have to interact with security guards and you have to kind of like leave maybe in a running away fashion. But those interactions are never really that scary because it's like a hired security guard and they're not really going to be able to do anything to you.
Yeah.
They're just kicking you out. That's their job. I've had a couple times where I've fallen at parkades while, you know, a little bit drunk, and that's just really upsetting. It's just not fun. But I don't know. I don't think I have really any that are really horrendous. I really just have a lot of fun at parkades usually.
Yeah, me too. I always think back to this one night where one of the security guards tried to stab us with a broken hubcap.
I think that I was already on my way out when that happened because I don't think it was firsthand for me.
Okay, yeah. I remember seeing the dude being all flustered, but just skating by him and not having it be an issue. But I remember a lot of people bringing that up and being like, wow, that's kind of intense. That was really parkades night.
Yeah. There's been some weird kind of encounters where people are like brandishing weapons and stuff. There's this one parkade that we skate at a lot because every single parkades night we go to the pizza place that's right next to this parkade. We get pizza and then we go to this parkade and we sit on the roof and eat pizza. And it starts maybe like 6 floors above ground and then goes like 3 floors underground. And at one of the underground floors, there's a door in one of the walls. And we always saw some kind of like big dude standing around outside the door and people coming in and out. And it was always kind of suspect because it's like literally a door in the wall in the basement of a parkade that's run down. And I remember someone suggesting that they thought it was like sex trafficking or something. And we just like went on with doing parkades and didn't really think much about it. And then one night during COVID, I think when it was like lockdown and I was just skating parkades with a couple other people, just a couple friends. Like I think I was with Lazar. I don't know if you were there.
This doesn't sound familiar to me, so probably not.
Yeah, we just out of curiosity went up to this door because there was actually just like someone standing there, and we just really wanted to know. I think it was Lazar who did this, who went up to this guy standing at the door, and he was like laughing with someone else, so they seemed approachable. Turns out it's a comedy club.
Really?
There's just a comedy club in this hole in the wall in this parkade, and we said we would show up there, and then it was like worse corona, so we didn't.
That makes sense.
We didn't want to go to, an event.
I can't believe there's an abandoned comedy club.
It's not abandoned. It's
used.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. It's a comedy club. It's literally a comedy club.
That's crazy. Is that the entrance?
Yep. As far as I know.
Whoa. Really
weird. Really, really weird. And I think that it's like worth a trip.
Shout out to the shitcade.
God.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Really unique. Really strange place.
On the subject of falling.
Yeah.
I am quite curious as to what the worst injury you have sustained is from downhill in particular.
Well, that's tough. It's tough because you could do a couple worsts. Like you could do probably like an objective, the worst injury, which is I got a boxer fracture in one of my hands. For those of you who don't know, they call it a boxer fracture because it happens to boxers a lot. It's a knuckle that's sort of like behind. It's in here. There's a joint. And on one of my hands, I broke this joint and needed pins that were actually sticking out of the side of my hand for the whole period of healing. That was probably like the objectively worst injury I've had downhill skateboarding. Although I can't say it was really like that bad in the long term. It was just that one like needed surgery and pins. So I would say that one's pretty bad. The one that was the worst in terms of like me feeling absolutely horrible and regretting it the most is it was one day I went out skating in like, I think it was like March. Yeah, it would have been like early March, or maybe, yeah, it would have been early March 2020, like right before coronavirus, right when kind of downhill skating was starting to happen again in Vancouver after the winter. I went out one morning because I knew it was going to be a big skate day. There were a lot of people in town visiting, and it was just going to be a really big crew. I went out a little bit early and went to get like one solo run to warm up. And solo runs are a little bit weird because the way that we skate the runs in West Vancouver is you have to like kind of have someone go down to a stop sign or go down to like a blind corner ahead of everyone else and wave them through. And so in a solo run, you don't really do that. You just skate really slow and stay in your lane and skate really cautiously and don't blow stop signs. And so in my solo warm-up run, I was coming through this corner set that you usually have a spotter for, and you're all the way in the left lane when you come through this corner set because you have a spotter. So we never really interact with like the right side of the road in this corner. And I was coming through this corner and I didn't have a spotter and I was going slow. So I was in the right side of the road, and there was just a big vertical pavement height change because of some like plumbing work that needed to be done under the road. So there's like a pavement patch after they tore the road up. And this totally took me by surprise because I had never really skated there and I wasn't paying a lot of attention because I was going really slow and just kind of like taking it easy. Went over this pavement change, fell, and put a huge hole in one of my knees. Just a big piece of road rash. And this was before I'd even like met up with everyone else I was skating with for the rest of the day. This was the first run of the day. So I like bucked up, cut my high socks off at the ankle and pulled the rest of the tube of the sock up over my knee to cover it up as like a makeshift bandage. And then I met up with everyone else and went for the second run of the day and was like, you know what? I'm still going to make this good. I'm still going to have fun today. And I pretty much fell in the same place on the next run and did the same thing to my other knee.
Oh, damn.
And so both of my knees had big, bigger than Toonie, like that big, just really painful gashes, or I don't know. Holes really in them. I did the same thing with the other sock, and skated the rest of the day, kind of like in pain, stingy the whole day, feeling really tired and just kind of out of it because I had fallen twice. The second fall wasn't actually because of the same pavement crack. It was I rubbed wheels with someone. We were skating so close, our wheels rubbed against each other, and that is just kind of a recipe for disaster when you're skating. And just ended up falling and had a pretty bad rest of my day. And the next day I couldn't walk up the stairs of my house, and it took so long for my knees to heal. And right around the same time I got sick for 3 weeks, and we kind of think it was coronavirus. So I really had a horrible like month after that crash and was really apprehensive about downhill skateboarding and took it really slow when I was getting back to skating, and bought knee pads like right away. And I don't skate without knee pads anymore.
That's good shit.
Especially because I didn't buy knee pads right away, honestly. I fell on one of my knees once or twice, not bad falls, and ripped the scar tissue that had just formed off of one of those big gashes. And just by the end of it, I was so frustrated with myself for not wearing knee pads and not, taking it safely enough. And yeah, that one is my biggest regret one, I would say. That was like my worst fall in terms of making me very upset.
Totally.
And then I thought I broke my wrist. There was one fall where I thought I broke my wrist, didn't go get an x-ray because I really wasn't sure and I was really anxious about it. So I didn't get an x-ray because that makes sense. I guess procrastination or whatever. And I wore a wrist brace for like 2 months. And then eventually went and got an x-ray and they said there was nothing wrong. And that was really bad just because I was so anxious for like 2 months, and I would only take my wrist brace off to shower. And I think just in the time that I was in the shower, like my wrist didn't have enough time to get back to kind of feeling normal and functioning. So I was just perpetually super anxious for 2 months about if my wrist was broken or not. Didn't do anything about it, procrastinated, and then it was fine, apparently.
Damn. Well, I'm glad it's all right. I am quite curious to hear the story as to how you ended up with a thorn in your forearm and your back?
You really want to hear about me being an idiot, don't you? You're really trying to put me out. Yeah, so this is a pretty weird story. I mean, it's not that weird, but it's pretty tragic. It was right after we did our big iron tour last summer, and we came back to Vancouver. We had been there for like a week. One of my friends' houses was empty. And so we decided we were all going to hang out and watch this legendary skate video called Eat Shit by this company, Venom. They're out of Colorado, and they were like the top racers in the world and like the best downhill skateboarders in the world at the time that this video came out. And it was like a 40-minute video, maybe longer, with an accompanying drinking game. And these guys really can drink. And they made the drinking game to go with it really that gnarly. So we had just come back from this trip of debauchery where we all kind of felt like we were hot shit, like we were like the Venom guys. You know, we were skating all Venom wheels and just kind of trying to imitate their lifestyle of like, you know, going bombing the big highways, running from the police, and like just drinking and camping in the middle of nowhere, you know. So we came back, we went to our friend's house, decided to watch this video, which we had never watched. And we got all ready for it, and the drinking game was really bad. Like I think it was like 12 beers in 40 minutes. That was about what it came out to for most of us. So we were really wasted, and we went to just kind of wander around after, because we just were a bunch of kind of drunk people who had no idea what to do. We didn't want to like sit in this house. And there's a big park with a high school in it, like right next to my friend's house. So we went to this big park and just kind of like tooled around for a little bit and realized that we could get up on the roof, because the high school just kind of has a one story roof. And so we went to do this and kind of climbed up on this roof, and you know, we were just being drunk and disorderly. And you know, it's only one story is only like what, 12 feet, maybe something like that.
It's pretty high up, I would say.
Pretty high up, but like not so high. So I was standing on the roof here, and there's a big bush below me, and all my friends were, not all my friends, but you know, a bunch of them were on the lower level on the ground. And we were just kind of getting ready to head out. And I just had no interest in climbing down from the roof. And I said, "Do you think that I could land in that bush and be fine?" And then did not wait for a response and jumped into the bush. And I mean, to my credit, I was fine. The bush, very comfortable, totally cushioned my fall, totally would have been fine, except this was I don't know what type of bush. I haven't gone back. But it was a bush with thorns, and these thorns were just like inch-long spikes, maybe 3/4 of an inch. I don't know, but they were just like spikes, like a big sliver almost. And I got a couple of them in me, and really wasn't super aware of it at the time. When we got back to my friend's house, pulled a couple of them out of my back, and it was just fine, no big deal. Couple days later, one of my forearms swelled up a bit, and we realized that there was probably a thorn still in there, and I went to emergency just to see if they could like take it out, because it was swelling in a weird way that was kind of scary. They couldn't find it because it was at the point that they were mucking with it and trying to pull it out or look for it. It just increased the swelling. They couldn't find it. They said there was probably nothing in there, and they gave me some antibiotics and said it was just probably an infection. And I didn't notice until probably about a year later, but it's still there. There's a really noticeable piece of thorn in my forearm that I can feel. I can move it around, and in the past probably month and a half, it started to kind of turn a little bit purple right by the tip that's closest to the skin, because I think it's trying to work its way out now.
Hopefully in a few years from now, it'll leave your body.
I think it will be in a maybe like a month.
Oh, wow.
That's the timeline I'm seeing.
Soon. That's exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. I can't wait to take it out.
I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Especially because, you know, like if I rest my forearm on a table like this and I touch the thorn, it hurts because it's there and it's a foreign body, and it's just like, annoying. It's not supposed to be there. It's sharp. It pokes me on the inside. I don't like it.
Yeah.
You can see
Yeah,
right,
right
there.
there.
It's purple.
Oh, yeah, it's
Very
really
nice.
sticking out. Damn.
Yeah. It's present.
Damn.
So
That is.
I'm gonna get that out, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I'm not gonna throw it away because that's a funny memory.
You'd better
It's a
save
little
that.
souvenir.
Yeah. Save it for later. Save the bush for later. I
That
do
was
have
a good night.
I do have one other story I'd like to go into, but obviously if you don't want to share it, it's okay. Very curious how you ended up skateboarding with the aforementioned pins in the hand on OG Day.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a good one actually. That's a good one. That I don't mind sharing that. When I got the story about the pins in my hand is a little bit deeper than just I fell skateboarding and got pins in my hand. Basically, it was in spring of 2018. So this would have been, I was 2 years into downhill skateboarding, and I had only ever really skateboarded with my friend Lazar. We didn't know anyone to skateboard with in the Vancouver scene. We would occasionally go to these events that the local shop hosts, and we would see other people skateboarding. You know, obviously it's a downhill skateboarding event. It's just a bunch of people downhill skateboarding, but we wouldn't really interact with anyone else because we were just new. I got kind of noticed by some better skaters, and they invited me to go skate in West Van in the British Properties, the neighborhood that we were talking about earlier, the best place to skate in Vancouver. So I, really, really feeling super, pressured but excited. I said yes, and I went on I think it was a Pro D day. And I went to West Van to skate with this person who invited me out, and lo and behold, the other person who was there, Oliver Lanyon, shout out, nice guy, love that guy, at the time was like my favorite downhill skateboarder. And he has all these videos in West Van where he's like, going switch, skating backwards, doing all this cool stuff. And I kind of idolized him at the time and didn't know he was going to be there. And I probably would not have gone had I known. And he was there. And so I felt all this pressure to skate with them and keep up with them. And I fell on the first run in a really weird spot just because of a pavement crack, and broke my hand. And it was about halfway down the run, and I knew my hand was broken right away. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't say anything. I skated down the rest of the run, just like pounding with adrenaline. And the lower half of the run from there was pretty tame, so it wasn't like, I wasn't really hurting so bad. And we got to the bottom, and there's a 7-Eleven at the bottom, and I went into the 7-Eleven, and I was like, I gotta get a drink. And I went in, and I looked at my hand, and I could just tell that it was not right. And so I looked over I didn't look over. I bought my drink, went up to Jake and Oliver, the two people I was with, and said, hey, my mom doesn't know I'm skateboarding today, and she's gonna get really mad if she finds out, and I just found out that she's going home early, so I need to leave right now. That's what I said to them. And I left without telling them that I had hurt myself, and I took the C bus across to downtown Vancouver, and I called my dad, and I said, hey, I broke my hand, meet me at the hospital. And he met me at the hospital, and they were like, yeah, you broke your hand. And I told my parents that I was skateboarding on the street, like next to our house. and because they didn't know that I went to West Van, because they would have been mad. And that, was bad. And I, the next day or the next weekend, I don't know, when Jake invited me back to West Van, I was like, I broke my hand skating in this alley, like near my house. Sorry, dog. It's crazy. And I had a cast, and I had pins, and the pins kind of stuck out of the side of the cast, and it was really gross, and it felt horrible. For anyone who's had pins that are temporary or even had permanent pins, it just feels weird to have a foreign thing in you and in your bones. Anyways, on the last day, basically, there's this event this was I think the second time that this event had happened. It's called OG Day, and a dear friend of ours, Colin, hosts this event. Shout out to Colin, best person in the scene, totally a wizard. Love you,
Colin.
He hosts this event called OG Day, where all the experienced riders in kind of Vancouver get together and skate setups that are really dated, like 10 years plus old. Those setups just are kind of harder to skate fast. Technology has really progressed in downhill skateboarding, and 10-year-old setups just are scary to skate fast on. So they go to all these kind of really mellow beginner hills and skate these old setups and invite anyone who can kind of downhill skate can come, and they can like I went that year because I really wanted to, because it was a community event and I figured I would actually meet people. And I felt really confident, like way too confident for someone who had a cast on. And I was like, you know what, I should really go. So I got my friend Lazar to come to my house and pick up some of my skateboard parts and take them to his house and put them back together. And so the day of OG Day was the day before I was going to get my cast off and get my pins taken out. It was a Sunday. And I left the house on Sunday and told my parents I was going to hang out with my girlfriend, and I had a backpack on that was probably so conspicuous because it had a helmet in it. And I went to Lazar's house, got the skateboard that he had been harboring, took transit all the way to OG Day, showed up, and was just so excited to skate. And I skated OG Day and just only did glove down, heel side slides, because I couldn't put my toe side glove down because my hand had a cast on it, and I held a GoPro in the cast hand the whole day because that was the only thing I could do with it. Like I couldn't even put a glove on. And it was phenomenal. I mean, I had a blast. I was super excited. I met people and kind of felt like a little bit more like a member of the scene that day. And that was kind of, I would say, right about when I started feeling more at home in the Vancouver downhill skateboarding scene. That was like the first day that I felt like I was like a presence. I wasn't just kind of an outsider watching. I was really in it. And I didn't fall. I didn't fall that day. I was really careful. I got Lazar to bring my skateboard and my helmet back to his house again. And the next morning I went and got my pins pulled out and got my cast taken off, and that was really it. 2018 was, a lot of Lazar and I skating together after that, and we kind of skated with those people, with Jake and with Oliver, who had first invited me out. I didn't really ever tell Jake or Oliver about this. I think I might have told Jake about it, but didn't really tell them. So here you go.
You might know now. You might know now.
Skated with them that summer, really kind of progressed quite a bit because I was skating with some new, faster people who were better than me. And then winter 2019, spring 2019, I met Aiden. I met, Lazar and I met Aiden. We met Noah shortly after that. Jake really brought together a bunch of people, and then that's really when I started to get pretty good at downhill skateboarding. And
definitely. I mean, I feel like the Void Incorporated crew has been a great vehicle for you guys to all push each other.
Oh, absolutely. Especially because we were all kind of like a weird mishmash of skill levels, but all not really like experienced skaters, like the people who we were looking up to. So we all kind of progressed together. And I mean, we were just great friends. So it was just like, it was a good kind of mix of wanting to hang out to skateboard and then also just wanting to hang out to be friends. And so we hung out a lot and we skateboarded a lot, and we ended up getting really good at skateboarding.
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing crew. I think I want to ask you one last question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, maybe more than one last question. But I do want to ask about Flat Spot, because I think Flat Spot is such a backbone of the community. What makes it so special, do you think?
Man, it's really hard to say. I don't know exactly what makes it so special. I think it would be really hard to summarize, because I think that a lot of things about it are really special. I think I think the people who work there are really, really incredible. Like, I think Les is incredible. Misha's incredible. I know Misha used to work at Flat Spot. He was, I think, one of the co-founders with Les. I'm not totally positive on the origins of Flat Spot, but Misha moved away from Vancouver, I want to say in 2018, to go work in a farm in the interior. I think a family farm. I think he's working with bees and apples and all sorts of things. I don't know. Shout out to Misha if you ever hear this. Misha was incredible. Les was incredible. Flat Spot has always kind of made these events for the community, all sorts of events for the community. I mean, they really try to foster all levels of downhill skateboarding in Vancouver, in ways that, you know, other shops don't necessarily do. Like Flat Spot would organize these events. They haven't had one in a while because of COVID and stuff, but they would organize these events called highway jams, and these were super formative for me, where they would rent a school bus for a day, sell tickets, fill up the school bus with a bunch of skaters, and then drive the school bus around Vancouver and West Vancouver to all these different hills, and just kind of like have a bunch of skaters skate a spot for like an hour and a half, and then drive to the next one and end at this spot out on the Sea to Sky Highway where there's no cars, there's no houses on it. It's just a service road that you don't have to worry about cars on, and you have to hike up to it. But you hike up to it, you get a bunch of pizza ordered to the spot, like 30 pizzas or something, and just like load up on pizza and hang out and skate. And those used to happen, you know, once every maybe 3, 4, 5 months. And so for Lazar and I, when we were beginning at downhill skateboarding and really trying to chase it, and we didn't have people to push us, we would have highway jams push us. Like we would go to one highway jam and then be like, okay, I want to be able to do this slide by the next highway jam. I want to be able to do this slide by the next highway jam. And that was really like a benchmark for our progression, was like, okay, we're not going to have like people take us to runs and push us in that way, but we have these, like quarterly events where we just want to be better by the next event. And for me, I attribute like me being here to that. I really would not be here if it was not for Flat Spot and for highway jams. And like that is so significant in my development as a downhill skateboarder, just because of the way that the scene was at the time, super not welcoming, generally speaking, to beginners. This made all the difference. And I mean, they were doing up until COVID, these weekly Tuesday sessions called Tech Slide Tuesday at this hill out in North Van that's, pretty mellow. So you'd get a bunch of veteran skaters going there and skating really kind of setups that are really, like basically a street board with hard wheels and trying to do really technical slides that are really challenging that your average longboarder probably doesn't know how to do. And then also beginners coming on their longboards, and this hill is like substantial enough that a beginner on a longboard can really pick up some speed and try and learn some slides and get a bunch of feedback from all the veterans that are there, just learning interesting technical things and hanging out. And it's like so incredible. And I mean, anyone can walk into Flat Spot and just ask about anything, like until COVID, we would just show up to Flat Spot whenever and hang out and just talk with whoever was there. And there's been a bowl, skating bowl in Flat Spot for quite a long time. I don't think it was there right away from when Flat Spot opened, but a bowl called the Walk that's apparently pretty hard to skate. I don't know, I don't skate transition, but it's always been fun to kind of show up to Flat Spot and just see like someone skating this bowl that's like right in there, just hanging out and watch someone skate. They're happy to have you skate flat ground in the shop, skate street in the shop, just on off hours in the basement,
totally,
whatever. Yeah, it's incredible. And I think, I don't know. Yeah, it's
a special shop.
It's really special. I can't summarize it.
Les always hooks up with the deals.
Les always hooks up with the deals. I don't know. Les is just Les, you're incredible. I can't even begin to express my gratitude for the way that you've helped the scene as a whole, and also just helped like every individual one of us, and with advice, and taught us things about the industry, and told us to look out for certain things.
Total skate dad.
I love absolutely
it. I guess I'd want to close this off pretty soon. We've been rolling for basically an hour and a half now.
Oh, nice.
But
wow.
I want to ask you, what are your goals going forwards? I know you're working at the espresso company. You're now a sponsored skateboarder, but what is the future looking like for Sam?
Well, I want to move out soon. That's a big one. That's high on the priority list in terms of just life stuff. I want to move out, move in with some friends, kind of get some experience living on my own. I want to go to school to university really soon, because I've been essentially just working a 9 to 5 since I graduated, and that's, you know, that's fine. I've saved a lot of money and spent a lot of time skateboarding, and I wouldn't be as good of a skateboarder as I am now if I hadn't given myself that time. But I want to go back to school. I miss learning. I'm excited to learn and just be in an environment with peers and, you know, that sort of dynamic.
Definitely.
So that's a goal, hopefully in September 2022, going to school.
What would you be looking to study?
I'm going to go into engineering, hopefully mechanical engineering, and just see how that goes. I'm a little bit daunted by some of the theory, but we'll see. I'll see how it goes, and if not, you know, it's no big deal. Move to something else.
Totally.
That's life. As for skateboarding, it's been a goal of mine for like 3 years to do the world tour of races. Hasn't really happened since COVID-19 hit, but coming soon, hopefully.
I'd love to see it.
I wanna travel the world, race some big hills, meet all sorts of people, and really experience that and see if that's something I want to pursue in the future.
That 2024 Olympic dream.
Hey, if it happens,
that would be incredible.
That'd be incredible. World Roller Games 2022 is happening. It's a biannual kind of IOC affiliated event. So in Olympic affiliated event, and they have a downhill skateboarding segment. The last one was in 2019 in Barcelona. The next one is supposed to be in 2021. It's going to be in 2022 in Argentina, Buenos Aires. And they, you know, assemble a national team for every country to race, and Team Canada has a couple qualifying races in the books. So I really, really would like to qualify for that and experience kind of like a true, almost Olympic level downhill skateboarding event.
I really hope to see you there. I think that'd be incredible.
That's a stretch goal. That's a stretch goal. We'll see. I really would like to do well at Danger Bay coming up at the end of the month.
Yeah.
That's a goal that I now have as of today, because I, you know, learned I got into the racing bracket of Danger Bay today. And I am very, very excited, because that's the longest running downhill skateboarding race ever. It's the 20th year. Longest consecutively running. There's a race called the Sullivan Challenge that argues that they've been running for a little bit longer, 1 year longer, but they didn't do any racing in 2019 because of COVID. They just had a draw. You just entered a draw and won a draw, and that was winning the Sullivan Challenge. Not really a race at all. Danger Bay just postponed their race until from spring, when it would have been, to October, and had a really tiny race. You know, they had like a 30 racer, no spectators, in and out, have to hike the hill between runs, no bus up or anything. But they made it happen, so I'm going to say that Danger Bay is probably the longest running race in downhill skateboarding.
Damn, I respect it.
And I'm really, really excited to race that. And that's a goal for sure, is to do well there. Maybe podium, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can certainly do it. I guess if you want to let people know where they could find you on social media, is there anything you'd want to plug?
Oh, boy. At Void Incorporated. I'm not sure. I think it's Void Incorporated.
I think, yeah, Void Incorporated.
That's us. That's the group of friends that I skate with. That's just kind of where we post silly stuff and, you know, do whatever. We were gonna make skateboards for a while. I kind of put some work into customizing skateboards, but we never really made them from scratch. And I don't know. We'll see.
Well, maybe we made a few, but they were all dumpsters.
Yeah. My @ is Sidorchuk. I think you're gonna have to add it, because I don't know how many S's are in my @
Quite a few.
Yeah, I think it's like 4 or 5. It's just 4 or 5 S's and then my last name. I don't know how many S's, so I can't really plug it, but
fair.
Yeah, follow me if you want. Follow Rolling Tree Skateboards. They are my sponsor for downhill skateboards. Follow Flat Spot Shop. They are the best, just the best. Period.
Absolutely love Flat Spot. And on my end, I'd love to give a big thank you to my dad for hooking me up with some gear, to Reinhard for helping me get this beautiful setup, and a very special thank you to my mom, for which we get to sit on beautiful cushions, which you cannot see. And I mean, having a space to use in the attic, which I'm ever grateful for.
It's
so
fantastic.
thank you. And thanks for tuning in. If anyone actually listened, that would be incredible. I love you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben, for this. This is pretty fantastic.
Oh, no worries, G. I thank you for coming
I'm
on.
excited to see what else you where this goes.
Totally, and I hope to have more skateboarding people, if you're into the skateboarding, or more just interesting guests in the future. So please tune in next time. All right. Thank you, Sam.